Thank you everyone for joining us. We're here for our third and final session on RaceJoy Advanced Training as part of our Timer Tip Tuesday series. Today we're going to be really diving into an important issue that you deal with. You got everything loaded, everything's good, and then something changes. How do we quickly change the path? Maybe I need to change the finish, maybe I need to change a part of the course. Kevin's really going to kind of take you from the really basic, like I just need to make a small change, and it's maybe a path that's not too long. And then we're going to get into the more difficult scenario, which is a really long path, like an ultra relay, and I've got to change a leg of an ultra relay. And we're going to be getting into a much more advanced topic there on how to change out a piece of a course in the middle of a really long path. So in order to do that, we'll be spending time today going into Google Earth. We find that to be a great tool for working on small path changes and on an overall long path. And he'll be actually showing you how to reload that, recalculate everything in the map, and really kind of taking you through how to use that tool. So it's a combination of things here today. We hope that you find this valuable. There are a lot of map building tools out there. I had an email from someone today. They were using a new tool to reverse all the coordinates of a path. So yeah, there's really great tools out there. But we're going to be using Google Earth today as our go-to tool for making path changes. So I'll hand it off to Kevin, and we'll be on the back end. Chris McDonald, who leads our Timer Tip Tuesday series, will be there with me answering any questions you have. And then we'll be back next week with our normal series with Timer Tip Tuesday.
Thanks, James. Before we even kind of get going, I just wanted to show you guys where to download Google Earth. You don't have to download it for today's session, but just if you want to play around with it after today, I think if you just do like a quick Google search of Google Earth, it should take you to google.com/earth or something like that. And then you can select Earth versions. And then you just want to scroll down to the bottom and download the Earth Pro on desktop. So that's the desktop version of Google Earth that I'll be kind of playing around with and showing you guys today. Okay, so as James mentioned, we're going to be talking about basically map editing, specifically with Google Earth. I'm going to run through a very, very, very basic map editing scenario, and then I'm going to go to the polar opposite end of a ultra relay 70-mile relay race that where we have to make a big section change. The concept does apply to a marathon. If you had to make a big section change on a marathon, the concept of what we do and the steps that we do will still be the same. But with ultra relays, there's a couple more things that we want to show you guys. So let's kind of get right into it, similar to what we've been doing the last couple of weeks, much more live training and kind of showing and explaining. If you guys have any questions or if you just need something explained again, just use the questions panel on the right-hand side, and then James will let me know that I should repeat something for you guys. These are pretty complicated and pretty advanced ideas here, so if you guys don't get it the first time, just speak up and ask me to kind of repeat it, and I'll go ahead and do that for you. So the very first, very basic option is if you have like a very small edit on your course, maybe your finish line needs to get extended out a little bit. With these types of simple changes, like just extending out a finish or start line or something like that, you can definitely just use the map editing tool within RaceJoy to do those edits. If you have like a longer course or the change is a lot bigger, we probably would recommend that you not do that. It's just a lot of waypoints and it takes a long time to render within your browser. So it's a pretty slow process if you've got a longer course or anything like that. But in this case, let's just say we want to extend our finish from here to here. Within RaceJoy, if you just change the draw mode to edit path, you can just simply drag that one of the white square boxes and just drag it to kind of where you need it. And then you can change your draw mode back to marker, and simple as that, we've extended the finish line there. So if we hit, edit path here, you can kind of see all of these white square markers. These are all individual waypoints, right? So the longer the course is, the more waypoints you have. So kind of the same thing, the more waypoints you have, the slower it is to edit a path within kind of this this style here. So before that's like kind of the basics in terms of how you could possibly do it within RaceJoy. I'm gonna now kind of switch over to Google Earth and kind of talk about the more advanced stuff. So before we kind of go through our scenario here, I wanted to give you a very quick basic rundown of Google Earth. This is Google Earth. And if you wanted to make a path, if you come into Tools, Ruler, and then Path, you can change, kind of what you want it to be. So maybe I want it in miles. And all you have to simply do is basically pick where you want to add waypoints, right? So if I want this course to start here, I'll click on that marker right there, and then you can see a blue kind of bubble there. If I click on my next waypoint there, you can see I've now created a path. And then if I keep drawing here, if I keep just kind of drawing this path, you can see how I can create a simple path there. Now, let's say, for example, this section, I actually didn't want to have participants run this way. I actually wanted participants to make a left here and then run here. A couple ways you can do this. You can kind of take all these markers that, these pinpoints that you added, and you can simply just move them, right? So I can move this down to here, move this down to here, and we're good. Another option is you can actually just delete these points. So if I click on this point, it's now blue. And then if I hit delete and then delete, I'm now back to this point. So then I can add a new point after this one. And we've now kind of fixed the path there. So that's kind of a quick rundown of how to create a path within Google Earth. You can see here, it'll give you the distance of the path, if you need it in miles, if you need it in kilometers, you can change all of these things. And then if you want to save this, just save this like this. Give it a name. And now the path kind of comes into this temporary places folder. And so now if I wanted to save this out as a KML to my desktop, I would right click this path, save place as, choose your locations, make sure it's KML, and then you can save that. And now on my documents folder, I don't actually know where I saved it to. In my documents folder. It's now right here, this test path KML. And then this is what you can do. You can take this KML and then put it into RaceJoy and then, kind of go from there. So that's a very quick, very quick rundown of Google Earth. If you guys start playing around with it and you have any questions, just shoot us an email at info@RaceJoy and we can kind of better explain kind of what you might need in terms of Google Earth and probably give you a better rundown of it to your kind of what you specifically need. So kind of within our scenario, let's walk through the more advanced scenario that I wanted to run through.
And before Kevin gets into the Ultra Relay, another use case just that he was highlighting there with the Google Earth, a really common use case that we run into a lot with timers is that you've got a path that you can get built in a map tool like Map My Run really easily. But you know what? There's this section where you go rails to trail, or you got this other park and you're doing something that you needed to do that was very specific to your race. What we recommend you do is just export it into Google Earth, and you've got this great satellite imagery. This imagery is getting updated all the time. And actually on the bottom there, it tells you And it's just always going to be up-to-date imagery, and you can just really zoom in and edit your path based on what's actually happening at that location. And you know you've got to go off course, you know, and do some section of the course that's a little bit off, and then just reload it into Ratio.
Yeah, a good example might be something like here in this park. This is kind of close to my house, so I kind of know these areas. So, you know, if you know, with like Map My Run, you know, these paths here, like these sidewalk paths, you can't really map those out in Map My Run since they're not officially a street. But, you know, let's say, you know, your course, you know, has you guys coming here, and then maybe you want the participants to come onto this, you know, sidewalk path and run this here. You know, you can do this in Google Earth. It's a lot harder in, you know, Map My Run, for example, since those are like not actual streets. And, you know, you can do the same thing here where maybe you want them to run across this small little sidewalk here. We see this a lot in trail races where you can make out like a trail path within, like in the woods, and you can just kind of use this to follow along the trail here. So it's a good another use of Google Earth there is kind of pinpointing your path if it's, you know, off of a main road or anything like that. Okay, so this is going to be our scenario that we're going to be looking at in terms of kind of making a map edit. So let's say, you know, this is, you know, we're hosting a 75-mile ultra relay, which is this course right here. I've already loaded in the path. I've already kind of set all the timing configurations up. I've added in all my cheer points. I've added in all of my exchange points. I've set up all of, you know, the distances. You know, I spent a good amount of time figuring out where the distances are for each of these. And all of a sudden it's race week and I've got a big change coming from the race director. So let's say, for example, you know, in this particular case, this is what really happened. This happened about a month or two ago. You know, week of the race, there was some flooding on the path, and for safety concerns, the township basically said you can't run on these roads, so they had to kind of alter the course and kind of change everything up. So this was the updated light path, these two parts right here. And so, you know, this was done on plotter route. So you can basically, what I did was I downloaded this file as a KML, downloaded both of these files as a KML, and I brought these two files, and I have this file, kind of the current path that we have in Google Earth. So here is that location. So each of these right here, I'm going to remove this. Each of these right here is a file. If I click on this down, you know, I can have all of those markers that kind of what we see in RaceJoy. Obviously, this is kind of a bit cumbersome and a little too much to view. So what you actually really only want is if I uncheck that and just check on the path. This icon here always is basically the path. It'll only show the actual route and path for that specific kind of file here. So I'm going to just check on that path, and so I only want to see the actual path. If I right-click that and select Get Info, I can change the color of this, right? So if I maybe want this to be, you know, light blue, I can hit OK. And now this is now in light blue. I'm going to keep it as red. If you click on measurements, you can also get the total measurements of this path, right? So I know that this path is 71.6 miles. This might come in handy, you know, if you just want to know the exact measurement of the path there. And then what I also did was I loaded in the update, these two files right here, leg 4 update and this pep rally file. And see if you click on these down arrows, you can kind of expand them. And so again, you're looking for this icon here, right? I only want the path because I don't need any of those markers. Just want the path. Makes life a lot easier. So you can see here the difference. So we've got red is what we've loaded in, and we've got orange is what we need to change. So what I like to do is I like to work in this layer, right? So I like to basically see what I need to change and see what is currently loaded. So if I go into the file for the original, so the part in red, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the red and change it so that it lines up with orange. So this is the path that's in red. If I right click and select Get Info and I zoom in, you can now see I can edit this path here, right? So you can see all of these waypoints. And so I can edit the actual path. A tip that I like to do, because it's just a lot easier than moving path, like moving all of those waypoints, I like to go to the end, right? So right around here. I click on one of the waypoints there and I basically just start deleting everything. So I'm getting rid of this. I don't want, all of these points are useless to me because those are not the actual course. So I'm just holding the delete button right now and just deleting all of the waypoints that make up the course that no longer is valid. Okay. So now at this point, I've got basically a waypoint here and a waypoint here, and I need to fill the middle with basically this orange portion. And it's just a matter of basically following the orange path and clicking on it, right? So you're creating the path here now. And so it's pretty much simple as that. You're just kind of following the path and making sure red now goes over any parts with orange, and you basically don't want to see any orange here. And so I'm not going to do this entire path here. What I am going to do is show you the finished product, which is this path right here. So you can see I checked on this path as this is the completed update, and you can see that you don't really see any orange, right? So the new path is now in blue, and you can see that blue follows orange, right? Blue follows orange everywhere. And now we've kind of fixed the orange and everything is good. So at this point, you have this file right here. This is your good file. If you come in here and right click that and you select Save Place As, we're going to download this fixed build. We'll download this. And so now I've got this copy right here, fixedville. And so this is the file now that I want to upload to RaceJoy. So this is kind of where it gets a little tricky here. If you guys remember, in the original total distance of the file, it was 71 miles. what we've actually done is that we've extended this to be 75.6 miles. But the thing is, none of the exchange points are changing, right? So we still want exchange point 7 to be at this exact location. We still want exchange point 8 to be at that exact location, right? We still want 8 to be here. But since we've extended out the path, this location on the new path is not 40.25, right? So if we were to load in the new path and then hit recalculate distance, it would now move this marker to the new 40.25. And I'll kind of show you what that means here. So let's load in the new path here. So let's go actions, import. We'll browse. Let's find the fixedville. And so we load in a new path here. We don't automatically recalculate all the markers. And this is kind of what I mean here. So in the old path, right here was mile 22. Right here was mile 23. And you can see we're not going to move mile 22 to maybe here until you come into actions, recalculate distance markers. But again, let's recall, since we've made this change, this whole section has basically added 4 miles, right? So at this point, this exchange number 4, which was originally at mile 26.8, is actually probably about 4 miles longer. It's probably at somewhere around 30 miles. And we can find that out. So if we click on this and hit calculate distance, you can see the new distance that this marker is at is 30.85. And I'm going to show you what happens. So if you remember the location of exchange 4, it's right here. If I go ahead and hit actions, recalculate distance markers, it's going to move all of the markers to the distance that's configured in the timing configuration, which is the old configuration. And so the original exchange 4 was here, but got moved back to here because on the new course, 26.8, which is what we configured originally, is actually further back. Does that make sense? Are there any questions there? Anything, James?
We're doing good on the questions, and yeah, you're good.
Cool. So again, since we've loaded a new path that's actually longer, 26.8 is further back. So you don't want to recalculate your markers at that point. So I can just come in here. And I'll show you guys what you need to be doing. So let's import the new file. And we know that everything after this point is messed up. Everything before this is all good. So because we didn't make any changes to the course up here, we know that exchange 3 is still at 19.23. So we don't have to worry about that. What you do need to now kind of go through is any of your exchange points or like custom queues that you added after the fact, you need to jot down the new distance that it falls on this particular path. So I'm going to go through maybe 2 or 3 of the exchange points and kind of show you how that works. So let's take exchange 4. If I select calculate distance, it gives me a distance of 30.85. So let me write that down. 30.85. And let's move to the next exchange point. This is 36.15. Again, we are calculating this distance based off of the new path that we have loaded in. And let's do exchange 6. And we're going to put down 40.78. So we're just going to fix these 3 exchange points. So before we do that, let's kind of take a quick reminder of where these points are. So there's 1 point here, 1 point right at Hillendale Elementary School, and then we want another one just after the Tuxedo First Baptist Church, right across Tuxedo Park. So we still want these exchange markers here. So let's come into our timing configuration and let's go to exchange 4. And now let's change that distance to what we had calculated. So the first one is 30.85. And exchange 5 is now 36.15. And then exchange 6 is now 40.78. And let's hit save. And now let's recalculate our distance markers. And you can see after we recalculated, exchange 4 is still in the correct location right here. Exchange 5 is still here at Hillendale Elementary School. And then exchange 6 is still here at Tuxedo Park. And you can see what happened to exchange 7. It got moved back behind exchange 6 because it's still going off of what the old configuration is. So in this case, what the timer had to do was kind of go through each, before he recalculated distance, he had to go through each exchange point from 4 all the way to the very end and figure out the new distances, come into the timing configuration, update the distances for all those exchange points, which is what we did here for 4, 5, and 6. And then you can recalculate your distance. And basically we're now going to keep those exchange points in one fixed location, but because the path is longer, we had to figure out what the new distance of that marker fell on. Were there any questions there?
No. So just to kind of review again, the steps that Kevin is really outlining here, and that is we will take care of all the mile markers for you. Recalculate, we'll move all the mile markers, but anything that you add custom, so custom meaning exchange points, cues, cheer points, you are saying you want that to happen at a very specific latitude longitude point, and you want it to stay at that latitude longitude point. You have to tell us that by going into the timing configuration and putting in the new distance, and then we will make sure that it will stay at the same lat long based upon the calculated distance of the path. So it's really the 3 steps are load in your path, get the path change in, make sure any custom points you've added that you've got the new distances in the timing configuration. That's the 2nd step. And then the 3rd point is recalculate, and then everything will be ready to go.
Yeah, and so this is probably one of the most extreme cases, and probably one of the hardest things to do is an ultra relay path change, right? So there's a lot of things that you have to kind of figure out. What I actually also want to show you is probably a more common situation that you guys might run into. So if we were to take this, half marathon course, let's export this out. And maybe let's make a very small change here. Well, we'll make a pretty big change, but for the sake of demonstration, let's say, maybe now this path goes this way. And then let's do something like that. So we basically added this whole section, and it's a little longer now. It's about 14 miles now. So if I were to take this update half. Save that as a new KML. Come into here and let's import that update KML. Update. And so you can see this new path that we just simply created. You know, for a 5K or a half marathon non-relay event, you know, you can simply come in here and hit recalculate mile markers. And then, you know, all of your mile markers will be put in the correct spots. Obviously, in this case, you know, this turnaround marker becomes not needed, but that's, you know, we can come in here and simply just remove that.
You removed the wrong point.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oops. And we'll remove that. And now, after we've made the path update, we now take care of kind of where all of the mile markers need to be. You know, where mile 2 needs to be, where mile 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth. The complicated scenarios, when you, like James said, is when you added custom markers that need to go out at that exact location, right? So if this was a half marathon relay and you still had, you know, you had an exchange point right here, you would have needed to figure out what the new distance of that exchange point, come into your timing configuration, and then update that distance. And then you could have gone ahead and recalculated everything, and then everything would have been perfectly fine for you at that point. Were there any questions there?
Nope, we're good.
Cool. Like I said, this concept is pretty difficult to grasp. What I found is, you know, when I was working with this timer, explaining it to him sometimes it was hard for this person to kind of click. But once he saw it with his own very specific course that he knows very well, everything kind of clicked, right? So if you guys have any scenarios where maybe week of a big change happens and it's a relay and you've loaded in all of these custom cheer points that you still want to go out at kind of those exact locations, let us know. I can hop on like a call with you guys and kind of walk you through your specific scenario and kind of how everything plays out. But we still want to give you a good overview of kind of the steps that are needed. What we're seeing a lot too right now, our timers are loading in course updates and then not doing anything. So hopefully you guys know that there is things that you have to do. And if you don't know how to do it, just let us know, and then we can kind of walk you through it and help you guys out. And that's kind of all I had for today. James, was there anything you wanted to add on specifically about this?
So again, we're really talking today about how to edit something that you may have created in another tool, a plotter route or so forth. Another use case I'm going to throw out is triathlons. Obviously, the triathlon transition areas, you're typically trying to put together a couple different things. We find Google Earth, again, it's a great tool for you just load in your pieces and then just go and just kind of fix up the transition area and getting, you know, those paths to connect. Again, Google Earth is a really great way to use satellite imagery to just kind of fix up these kind of complicated path intersections that you might have. So that would be another use case that we see commonly used for Google Earth.
Yeah, another, like James said, these are Google Earth is kind of what we like to use, and it's been really helpful for us, and we can make changes pretty quickly through that software and get everything back into RaceJoy pretty quickly.
And just looking through the questions here real quick. Yeah, so again, the question does come up a lot, so thanks for asking that, Steve. Again, if you're using RaceJoy year over year, if the event name is the same, then when you renew, we automatically copy over the maps and they'll be there. If you change the name of the event, so it's used to be a 5K and now it's a 6K, then we won't automatically detect that and copy it over. But we do try to you know, make that work for you. So year over year, if it's still a half marathon, we'll copy over the previous year, and then you can just make your edits on the path and good to go. And then the other thing I think that comes up a lot on these edit paths, it's a really good question. I think Kevin really hit it here today, is, the distance, right? Remember that all of our distances are based on what are called GPS measurements, which is not the same as a certified wheel measurement using an Allen counter and so forth. So again, we always recommend you set up the markers. If you are doing course signage and you have that, just move the markers around based on course signage. You always want to set your finished distance based upon the certified distance. But again, in the one-off situations where you have these relays, these trail events and stuff, then you probably would want to use the GPS measurements and just use that for your finished distance. Okay.
Cool. And also one thing I did want to bring up kind of when James brought up about renewing, I think it's a little bit better now, but I know last year a lot of races, they created new events specifically for COVID racing or something like that. And then when they renewed for Race Joy, they actually wanted the 2019 stuff for 2019 courses, and they actually only renewed the new COVID event. So if you're renewing between events, it's not necessarily going to work like that as well. So let's say in 2019 you had a half marathon, and then in 2020 you created a whole new event within your RunSignup race page called Virtual Half Marathon. And now this virtual half marathon event you renewed it for 2021, and you actually renamed that virtual half marathon back to your in-person half marathon. Things are kind of get a little wonky there, so kind of be aware of that as well. But I think a lot of you guys know, if you guys just email us and let us know whether you're not seeing a course that you need to see or anything like that, we can copy things over for you from either previous years or another race or something like that. So just let us know and we can help get that taken care of for you.
Yeah, and again, the tool is set up for export import. So if it's just a simple half marathon, just export from the 2019, do the change year, show the change year, and you can just change year up on the change year, go grab your 2019 and then export it and then import it, recalculate, and you're good to go. If it's something complicated with a lot of markers and you've done a lot of work for setting up a bunch of stuff, then yeah, info@racejoy.com. Ask for, give us the source year and the destination year that you want us to copy over, and we'll do that. But if it's simple, just do the change year, export and import, and be really quick for you. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, if there are no other questions, I've got
just the slides for a second and a couple of closeout things from Shelly and the marketing. Great. So a couple things happening here next week. Special session, RunSignup 101 for really basic, all about RunSignup basics is another way of describing it. It's an opportunity for you as timers. If you do have some new race directors that have never done anything with RunSignup and maybe they're really new to the platform and you want them to just come and get a little bit of training so that makes your life easier, we definitely invite you to invite them with you to next week's webinar. So if, Kevin, if you just go out to runsignup.com learning on the website. And then the learning webinars. So again, the webinars area is your go-to place for signing up for webinars and finding out what's coming. And like I said, though, next week's Timer Tuesday will be all about the RunSignup 101 basics. Yep, great. And it'll actually be a Timer Tuesday version of that. It's not out there yet. Yep, great. Okay, it'll be out there. And I think that's all we had. Thanks so much, Kevin. That was a really great job of showing what is a somewhat complicated thing to edit a path in Google Earth. And also, again, those steps, just to reiterate, load the path in, hit save, then go any other points that are not mile markers, anything that's custom, just go get the new distance based on the new path, update your timing configuration, step 2. Step 3, recalculate. Simple as that.
All right. Well, that's all we had for you today. And yeah, we appreciate you taking time out of your day to kind of come on our webinar, and just let us know if any questions come up and we'll be there to take care of you. All right. Have a good one, guys. Take care.